Good morning, everyone. We ring the peace bowl once more. This morning, we ring the peace bowl for mothers, and we acknowledge our collective yearning for peace on earth. We acknowledge that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people, the Wipukepas, the Tolkepayas, the Cuevcapayas, and the Yavapai. As part of the history of this ancestral land, we especially recognize today the Yavapai mothers, the mothers who gave birth along the Trail of Tears from Clarkdale to San Carlos and were not allowed to stop and rest. And all the Yavapai mothers of today. Now let us listen to Meg Borman as she talks about her connection with the world through being a mother.
I am really feeling the question that was put to me, and it's how does motherhood relate to peace? How does peace relate to being a mother? And I'm very, very, very aware that mothering is an action and peace is an action. And the action is caring. The action is nurturing. The action is birthing. The action is connecting. The action is noticing. The action is removing for a while. The action is being connected to the world around me, to my children, to my fellow living beings, my fellow non-living beings. I find that I anchor myself in life and space-time through the body of the mother, through the body of the woman. I remember being a little girl when I see little girls and I imagine them being a mother. I see young mothers and pregnant ones with little infants. And I remember that so strong in my body and imagine them being where I am, where all my children are leaving. I imagine being a grandmother and those older women, what it was like to be me. I feel so rooted in the cycles of the feminine that they bring me peace. The peace of knowing that there's always growing. And there's cycles. There's a time for birth and a time for death, and a time for gestation, and a time for brilliant dancing in the sun. And I feel like the way we treat ourselves as mothers, each other as mothers, is how we treat the earth, because she is our mother. Rooted in the feminine is rooted in the earth for me. And protecting that, allowing everybody to feel that connection. I feel like peace happens then. Peace happens when we feel safe and connected to the source. And that's what mother means to me. And even when I'm tired and sick of it all, I have my babies. I gotta get up for them.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you. And good morning again to all of you. We begin this morning with our mission statement that was wrought through a long time of people thinking of how to put these words together to express where we want to go and who we are. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We extend our thanks to all who contributed to this presentation: Heather Knowles, Mary Lou Prince, the Granite Peak Singers, and for Meg Borman, Mary Steenhoek, Laurel Freeman, and Leslie Grady for their wisdom. And here are announcements. We are apart, but we have found many ways to be in community, and there are many ways we are beginning to gather. Please look at today's order of service and connect with the weekly peak. If this doesn't make sense to you, then I suggest in the chat you write to Heather and ask her about these things. And if you go to our website, prescottuu.org, you will find where our faith development meetings are and what is happening for both children and adults. The event that we were all going to, or many of us were going to attend or sing at today at the square has been canceled and moved to June 2nd at 6 p.m. And next week, after our service, once again, you will have a chance to talk with the now larger sanctuary transformation team who will be presenting ideas from the past weeks. And then after that, in the afternoon, from 1 until 4, the team will be in the sanctuary to answer your questions, listen to your ideas and write them down, and homemade chocolate chip cookies will be provided. It's going to be an exciting time. And now we enter into the tradition that is always at the beginning of our worship services, our chalice lighting. This morning on Mother's Day, it seems to many people I know, and I feel the same way, that Mother's Day cards don't express all of the people who have mothered me. And so we have a video that Heather has made, and the words are from Ritual for Mothers by Wendy Bartle and Lynn Gardner. This is for us an opening to draw our circle wide to all the mothers of our lives.
For those whose mothers have died, we light a candle. For all the mothers who have adopted, and for the biological moms. For all those who want to be mothers, and who may not have this experience. For those whose children are far away. For the mothers-in-law, stepmoms, and co-parents who are recreating family. For those who didn't receive the mothering that they needed. For those who didn't offer the mothering they wish they had. For those mothers who have lost children, whether unborn, infants, children, youth, or adults. For the ones who are missed. For those families that don't include a mom, yet are mothering, are nurturing, who are loving and whole just as they are. For those with wonderful and complicated relationships with their parents or with their children, all practicing the art of being human. For those who are grateful for the blessings of their mothers. For those who fear that they will be taken from their children. For all our mothers, we light a candle.
For all our mothers, we light our chalice this morning. And I invite you, as we widen this circle of motherhood, to say the names of those in your life who have been mothers to you. This morning, when I woke up at 5:30, thinking of Mother's Day, I looked out the window and I looked first for that nest that is just out our window. The mama bird is taking care of what we think are baby birds down in the nest, but we still haven't seen them, even if we climb up a ladder and peer from the top. I will keep you tuned as we discover their little heads. It is an experience that I think we have many of us have had, of wanting to send that safety to those birds all over the world. The many people who are called to be mothers, to watch over and nurture, continue that work of love and watchfulness. Some of those humans who have done that work of mothering will be personally celebrated by those they love and care for. And here in this place, we open our circle wide to those who continue these acts of mothering, sending out love, regardless of what they receive in return. Let us open our circle to the mothers of refugee camps all over the world, to the mothers of soldiers who are in danger, to the mothers who have lost their children to violence, illness, addiction, and all those reasons that separate. Let us send them love and peace like a river. Let us affirm the peace in our own hearts. Let us sing a song that came out of the pain of enslavement and affirms survival. I've got peace like a river. Let us sing with our Granite Peak singers.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
Thank you, Granite Peak singers. And now please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And now let us listen to Mary Steenhoek, a member of our congregation and a mother whose heart yearns for peace in this world.
The word peace has been part of my being for a very long time, and the thread goes back to childhood. Today, I was thinking about mothers and peace. And I was thinking that because mothers give birth, give new life, then they have that sense of the value of the life they have given, but of all life. And I think that's what motivates me to constantly learn to live that care and honoring and respect for the possibilities of every life. And the thought that we think war or fighting is a solution, can lead to anything better, is just one of the big puzzles of my life. But it is part of us. And so for me, what I want to do is pay attention to the peaceful part and nourish that. It's like a seed of peace that I want to keep growing, and through the rest of my life I'll be learning, what does that mean for me personally? How do I, on a personal level with everybody I meet, where is the honor and the value and the respect? And then as you get out into the political arena, then that same question is there. And I just want to encourage others to think positively too. And that's what I feel like my life is about, peace. So.
Thank you, Mary. And now let us listen once more to the sound of this bowl. Let us breathe together. Let us breathe this air that I feel is more delicious than any air of places I have lived. This is beautiful air, even though I know some of you are suffering from allergies. Let us breathe in together. Let us breathe in and feel that earth beneath our feet. Let us feel all of those layers down through the topsoil into that, all of those layers that go down to the fiery core of this earth, those layers that are always changing. Let us feel beneath our feet this earth that has supported us all through our years. We are here together again, and my heart is full of gratitude for you for choosing to come to this Zoom gathering. Each of us, as we come together, we carry with us the joys and sorrows that accompany our life as humans, those burdens and celebrations on our hearts, those feelings of loss and happiness. We have the happiness that Franceni Gardea is graduating from Prescott College. She is the first in her family to graduate, and they celebrated at our church yesterday at our building. Let us hold Joan Brown, who has been admitted to the Yavapai Regional Medical Center. And as we speak, Barb Jacobson is visiting her, and she will give me some information, hopefully by text, that I can give you, because I know many of you are wondering more about this, and I don't want to give you something that I heard yesterday because things may be changing. So I want to make sure that you receive that news, and I will give you a special alert during the program if I receive that. Let us continue to hold the many who are in the process of recovering from illnesses, Judy Davis, who I will visit later today, and Janer Eldridge, Karen Anderson. Let us hold her especially today because this is her birthday. Let us hold Frank Malley, Ed Rosage, and Peter Eldridge, who is learning to navigate the world around him in a new way, and Joe, who is accompanying him, and Annette Skellinger, who is their marvelous guide. Let us also hold Christy McHugh, Aaron Holloway, Tony Jarnigan, Rick and Karen Denny, and Dick Fox's and Taya Park's families who are grieving. Let us hold Karen Hagberg and her husband Merle. I spoke with her last night, and there is joy in their home because they are home now and grandchildren are able to visit them. We also hold Robin Kendall's family. She passed away this last week, and her family is just beginning that process of grieving. And we will be giving you details on a celebration of life that will be planned. Let us hold all those. We cannot forget those essential workers who have continued working through this pandemic and have held so many who have died, and also who have kept going with work, the farm workers, all those who have kept food on the table through this difficult time and have been at risk. Let us hold them. Let us hold all those in our community who have personal sorrows that they are bearing alone. May they feel the love of our community around them. And just as that marvelous video showed, this complexity of mothers in our lives, we hold all those mothers as we enter our time of silence together. After I ring the bell, I invite you to say all of those names again of mothers and all those who are on your hearts and minds. And I will ring the bell again after our time of silence. And then I will offer a meditation prayer. Please join me now in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we are here, humans who care about one another. We ask for accompaniment of all those who are lonely, all those who are ill, all those whose hearts are grieving. We ask that, especially in those times that are most difficult, when one wakes up in the middle of the night, that these feelings of community can be brought again. We ask that no one in this community will feel that they must walk this path alone, that they will feel accompanied. We also ask for blessings of all the mothers who mother in all the different ways throughout this earth. We ask for blessings on the mothers in refugee camps, in the Greek islands, and in so many places all over the world, wondering how their children will grow up. We ask for peace on this earth. Amen, and may it be so. And now I invite you to sing with me, Walking, Walking with You. Walking, walking with you, walking with you is my prayer. And now we go into a different time of our service. This is the time when we gathered in our sanctuary to take our offering, to give. Let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather each week. Let us remember that this congregation, its staff, and its programs are supported by your generosity. And we also give to the greater community through our seeds of support. Our seeds of support this month is the Opportunity Scholarship, a fund established by Granite Peak with the Yavapai College Foundation. This scholarship helps DACA students stay enrolled in Arizona. There is an urgent need to fund this scholarship now for fall semester applicants. Please be generous. And now let us enjoy the photographs of mothers gathered from last year, from all of you and from some new people who are coming to our Zoom services. The music is by Mary Lou Prince. Isn't that wonderful? And I have breaking news from the nest. The first baby bird has peeked up its head. Mary Lou just brought me the news. And now let us read together the words that inspired Mother's Day in 1870, when Julia Ward Howe, a writer, activist, mother, and Unitarian, believed that mothers were the most likely people to bring peace to the world. Let us say together the Mother's Day Proclamation by Julia Ward Howe. Arise then, women of this day, arise all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, and each bearing after her own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. Today, we chose those words because she, Julia Ward Howe, started the tradition of Mother's Day in the hope of peace. She wrote that beautiful proclamation in 1870, 150 years ago. In the United States, the Civil War had just ended, the great destruction that touched many families, a palpable divide that had split our nation. Every day, she would have been reminded of war, men returning wounded, missing limbs, forever changed, the refugees from war. Only after war do we see most clearly the fruits of war. Yet in this proclamation, she didn't lift up the Civil War. She spoke of women of many nations and international wars. So I searched for international wars. I found a list of 70 wars between the years 1860 and 1870. Incredible wars. The Paraguayan War from 1864 to 1870 began with the invasion of Paraguay by a triple alliance of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Almost 60% of that country died. That population died in that war. 1864 marked the conclusion of the Russo-Circassian War that began in 1763. After the Russians declared victory of that war that lasted 101 years, they carried out a genocide and exiled large numbers of Circassian people that formed a diaspora of 50 different countries. During this time, amongst the wars that were so-called wars against Indians, there were many in the United States. Among those was the Yavapai War, which one historian has lasting from 1861 to 1875. And now let us listen to Leslie Grady as she speaks as a mother about peace and her spiritual practice.
To find peace in our everyday life, we need to take time out every day to maybe meditate a little bit, maybe to take a hike out in the woods and just be at peace in the woods. I really love to do that. Also, as Prescott Peace Builders, we are trying to plan a lot of different events to bring people together in the theme and the topic of peace, to be together as peaceful, loving people.
So I imagined and I investigated, who was this Julia Ward Howe? Who was she talking about in her proclamation? Who were the women she was calling when she wrote, "Arise then, women of this day, arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of tears"? Who did she want as allies in her work towards peace? This is where the history becomes complicated. After I heard the story of Julia Ward Howe and the origin of Mother's Day from Mary Steenhoek, I began to investigate Julia Ward Howe's life. She was born an Episcopalian and became a Unitarian in 1841. She was the mother of 6 children. She had an unhappy relationship with her husband, but her way of hiding her unhappiness was to bring happiness. She was called by her children the family champagne. I wonder how many of you had mothers who would have been the family champagne. She was an abolitionist. She was against the practice of enslavement. But from what I have read, like most of the Euro-Anglo-Americans of the 19th century, she did not believe that emancipated African Americans were her equal. So when Julia Ward Howe was writing this marvelous Mother's Day proclamation for peace and addressing women, she was speaking of Anglo and Euro-American and European women. She wasn't thinking of African American women who had suffered separation from their children during enslavement, or the Yavapai women who were being massacred by the United States Army, or the Asian and African women of countries who were in the throes of fighting off colonization. Many of those wars between 1860 and 1870 were the wars started by countries attempting to create empires. So I wondered what to do with this information. Should I call up Mary and tell her? So 2 weeks ago, I talked to you about a new era and that song about never going back, of always moving forward. And I wonder, in this situation, what does moving forward look like? Do we decide that her words are not worthy and delete her from our sources of wisdom? Or easiest for me, do I cover up my knowledge that she wasn't calling to all women and pretend that she was, just for this one sermon? I didn't like either of these options. I wonder, is there another way? I began to wonder that instead of crossing out her important vision, could we take up her work, acknowledging the truth of the past and intentionally open up the meaning of her words? 150 years after she wrote this proclamation, I think that we can intentionally expand her proclamation to include all the women of that time and this time, the women living in Burma, China, Japan, the Maghreb of Africa, the subcontinent of India, the Pacific Islands, the women in the Syrian refugee camps on Greek islands, the women recently emancipated from enslavement, the Yavapai women who gave birth on the way to San Carlos in the winter, forced to move on with no time to stop and rest, the trans women as well. I believe we are being called to look at history in a new way. And this is very upsetting to some people. This week in our Senate, there were objections to a movement in education to recognize the history of enslavement as central to the history of this country. National Academy of Education President Gloria Ladson Billings explained the reaction in the Washington Post. She wrote, "It runs counter to a narrative that we want to tell about ourselves, about who we are. A narrative we want to tell about ourselves, about who we are. In this moment, we have an opportunity to look at who we are and who we were. To do that, let us expand the context of the proclamation and look more closely at this part of the world at the time Julia Ward Howe was writing. And let us include the people whose ancestral lands are all around us. In a brief speech in 1864, the Arizona Territory governor advocated for the extermination of the Indians. Among those people were the Hopi, Dene or Navajo, Apache, Pima, Maricopa, Tohono O'odham, the Quechuan, the Wipukepa, Tolkepayas, Cuevkepayas, and the Yavapai, the Havasupai, the Chiricahua, the Southern Paiute, and many others. That is the history of that time in this part of the world. So as I was thinking about Julia Ward's incomplete understanding, her imperfection from our vantage point, that we can see 150 years later, I thought of the horrible burden that many mothers have borne, that certainly my mother bore, that expectation of perfection. I wonder, as part of transforming the world and making peace, I want to invite you into the process of forgiveness for the mistakes that Julia Ward Howe made, and for the mistakes that our mother made, and that we made in our own mothering. Although I know that it must happen, that some children are exactly what their mothers dreamed of, I think that very often children come to parents for a mutual teaching experience. In this intimate, nurturing relationship, we are given ample opportunities to learn resilience, kindness, and how to love. To sustain any relationship, and especially the one that exists with motherhood, we must learn to forgive and to begin again. It is never too late to join in this process, even if you are 90 years old and your mother died 50 years ago. This is the way that we can recover the words of Julia Ward Howe in her proclamation on Mother's Day and live into her wisdom. She wrote, "Our sons and now daughters also go to war, shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons or daughters to be trained to injure theirs." These are words for this time that bid us not allow war, because we feel a oneness with the mothers in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and all the other places where sabers are rattling. May women lead us towards what Julia wrote as the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. May these words come true. Amen, and may it be so. And now I invite you to sing and look at the world that has become our world 150 days after Julia Ward Howe's proclamation. Years after Julia Ward Howe's proclamation. For our closing words, we will listen again to a mother whose heart yearns for peace, Laurel Freeman.
Hi, I'm Laurel Freeman. I guess I've been working on understanding war since I was in high school and the Vietnam War was going on. And as I became a mother, I realized that if I'm going to do this, I've got to do it right and do something about the world as well. And I kind of saw my role as a mother as mostly civilizing. And I think that role extends into the whole society, and not just our society, but the world. As I civilize, there really are best practices of behavior with each other. And we like to think we're living in a civilized society, but if women or someone Black doesn't feel safe walking down the street, that's really not the truth right now. I've lived in Europe and places that feel much more civilized, and I know we can get there. I think sometimes Americans don't realize that we are kind of the odd man out as far as being the only ones who have actually dropped not one but 2 nuclear bombs that spend way more than the rest of the world combined and multiplied on defense. And that, I mean, personally, I feel like we're kind of under this military industrial complex that are a bunch of bullies, and we just need to call bullshit on it. As I studied about science and biology and sociology, I think our main task is to figure out that we're all one tribe and figure out what the rules are going to be. Because now we're all in connection, we're all in communication around our globe. Ever since the pictures came in from outer space of the Earth floating there, it seems to me that needs to be our flag, and that really women are in a position to understand how important it is to be civilized. And I feel like that's my job. Okay.
Thank you, Laurel. Thank you for those words. I haven't heard from Barb Jacobson yet. But actually, right after, when you go into your breakout rooms, Lou and I are going into our car and we are going to go see Joan Brown in the hospital. And I will let you know this evening in my video about how she is doing. So we now extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoy your time in the breakout rooms. Oh, and I encourage you to talk about what the many mothers of your lives have taught you when you meet together in your rooms. Thank you. Bye.